So the same principles apply as for the leader debate. I'm going to give each candidate 2 minutes, and then we're going to take questions from the floor. I'll introduce the candidates from my right, and I'll ask them to speak in this order as well. That's Störm Poorun. Have I pronounced it correctly? Good. Andrew Cooper. Alan Borgars, Shahrar Ali, Amelia Womack. Right, is everyone clear as to who's who? Right, because I was told off for not making it quite clear enough before. So anyway, I shall ask Störm to start with his 2 minutes speech, please. Thank you.
Amidst the current political crisis, we as a party and as a country face a much larger crisis looming over us, namely climate change, and also a result of global inequality and unfairness in our resource usage. Sorry, indeed. Yeah, it is. As a party, we need to go forward. We need to gain electoral success. We also need to transform our economy, which underpins the way we impact on our environment. And to do that, I propose that we form an economic commission so we can go forwards with a coherent and strategic economic policy, one which we can present competently and we can put into place in our country. In order to take this forward, we also need electoral reform, which I would push strongly for as part of any leadership team, including any alliance that we may decide to mandate as a party. We also need to involve our members, including members from the Green Surge, much more deeply in the party and engage them and ensure that we can harness their passion, commitment and enthusiasm. We need to do that by modernising and overhauling our party framework, the way we work, including our policy procedures and the way we vote within the party and use digital communications. My experience in the party goes back from the late 1980s, and about 22 years ago I formed a new local party and led it and managed the election campaign to winning our first local councillor, which was in a very working class area. Myself, I was brought up in a working class area in Britain, in a city council flat. I was brought up gay, mixed race, parentage, in Africa, in Britain and in rural Ireland. So I experienced a lot of difficulties, and I left home when I was 13 and left school at that age. But I went on to manage a number of successful businesses.
Yeah, 15 seconds.
Okay. To work in the courts and to manage a national network of housing cooperatives and to stand for our party at every level through successive elections. And I believe as your deputy leader, I can help us reach out to a much wider audience and different sectors in our society and give us electoral success and put our policies into place for a better world. Thank you.
Thank you, Störm. Andrew Cooper.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Cooper. I'm a councillor in Kirklees. So fraternal greetings from across the Pennines in Yorkshire. Okay. That was cool. Anyway, these are challenging times. We've got Brexit, and Brexit is threatening our social and environmental laws. We've got a Labour Party whose future is uncertain, and a government that is abandoning any pretence of giving a priority to addressing climate change. So we're going to need a wide range of skills in our leadership team. So what can I bring you as deputy leader of the party? Well, I'm someone who's an elected politician. As a councillor, I was elected 17 years ago, and I've been re-elected 6 times. So that gives me a degree of authenticity and credibility in pretty much the same way that Caroline has as an elected politician in Westminster, but not to the same degree. As someone who's dealing with casework and issues each day, I look at see the consequences of government cuts. I can speak with authority about those sort of issues. I'm also someone who's been working on a hung council for 17 years, and that means I've had to negotiate with other parties about trying to get green policies enacted. And if we are to look at things such as progressive alliances and such like, those skills will be needed. I also see how policy affects people on the ground on a day-to-day basis. And so if we have a Westminster-focused leadership, that will have an impact there. I'm from outside the southeast Westminster bubble, and I have easy access to Media City in Manchester, where programs such as BBC Breakfast are made, which can actually help our media profile. And I'll be a credible champion for the Target to Win strategy and help us get more councillors elected throughout the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Borgars.
Well, good afternoon, North West Greens, whether you come from Cheshire, Greater Manchester, Lancashire, Merseyside or Cumbria. I'm Alan Borgars, I'm 25 years old, I've been a Green Party member for 4 years, I come from the town of Ware in Hertfordshire, spelled W-A-R-E, just so we're all clear. I'm currently work as a disability support worker and freelance education worker, so I understand what it feels like to be a person alienation disaffected in current British politics, since I'm not only a young person but also a disabled person who like so many people, has been through the nightmare of claiming ESA and is worried about the day that PIP letter will come. I believe the Green Party needs to reach out to everyone in Britain, regardless of who they are or where they live, because Green politics is for everyone and can work for everyone. That's why, back in 1973, we originally called ourselves the People Party before calling ourselves the Ecology Party and then the Green Party. How can we do this, you ask? Well, what we've got to do is get more organised locally and nationally so that we can stand everywhere. Because if we stand a full slate of candidates, we get seen as a serious political party that can actually implement its policies, because we'll get elected more or easily and be able to implement the change everyone wants. The Brexit result was not just a vote against the EU, it was a vote against the establishment, it was a vote against elitism, it was a vote against a failure to reform and bring desperately needed change to everyone. But we must make sure our message is one of real hope, which promotes green politics. For example,
15 seconds.
Cycling saves money as well as conserves our natural resources, and reducing meat not only reduces carbon emissions and is kind to animals, but it also helps us live longer and reduce our risk of getting heart disease. So vote for me, Alan Borgars, #1 for Green Party deputy this year, so we can bring the fight for a change and be the party of tomorrow. The future's bright, the future's clean, and the future's green.
Right, Shahrar Ali.
Thanks, Brian. It's a real honour to be here, actually, and I found that first session very stimulating indeed, and we were here warmed up because we've been down in Leeds. What I really liked was the diversity, although that was a question in its own right, of opinion. That clash of ideas, if you will. And one of the things, cut to the chase style, that I think I can bring to a leadership team is that element of accountability, which is at risk of becoming a kind of a watchword, because there are risks at every point round the corner. Whether there's a big news story and we issue a press release, do we do so with the proper authority and mandate of the membership? And I think that's where I come in, because I can say, I hope as diplomatically as necessary, look, we need to ask that local constituency, whether it be Joe Cox constituency. We're not just going to issue a directive that we won't be standing there, because guess what? We need to check with the local party, because that's democracy in action. That's internal democracy in action. Because if we don't practice what we preach internally, we shan't be fit for governance externally. And I hope there will be plenty of time to debate what I think, for example, of the Progressive Alliance, what I think, for example, about diversity. But really, what we've got to be sure of is we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because we're a bold
15
party.
seconds.
At bottom, we believe in an inclusive society. At bottom, we believe in an egalitarian society. And at bottom, we say that we need to fight to challenge and check climate change like there's no tomorrow. Otherwise, there will be no tomorrow.
Thank you. As the last 2 years as your deputy leader, I visited over 100 local parties across the country because I believe in the grassroots of this party. If it wasn't for you, our members, our volunteers making policy, delivering leaflets, we wouldn't have elected members of the Green Party. And it's from the grassroots that we build our party. Beyond that grassroots activism of working with you at demonstrations, at events, or leafleting for your by-election candidates, council candidates, or for the general election, I've actually helped influence our national message to make sure that the Greens' unique voice is being heard. Having set up Greens for a Better Europe, not only did we manage to make sure that our clear message on human rights, environmental rights, and workers' rights got heard in a forum that was being dominated by the free movement of money and the importance of the EU in big business, but actually worked across party, galvanising trade unions and other left-wing parties to the same ideas. By setting up Another Europe is Possible, the only left-wing pro-EU campaign, where we unashamedly said that we were pro-migration and stood up against the xenophobic rhetoric that was coming out of the Leave campaign. On top of that, I've also worked on media events across the country, supporting regional television and radio, as well as debating Jon Snow on Channel 4 News, being on Daily Politics or on BBC News. We've got a lot of work to do, and with the current political situation, we have an opportunity not just to build our party, but to take it to the next level. And we need to be making sure that comes from the grassroots, engaging all of our members, ensuring that we're putting the Green Surge at the very heart of our party and building it to the next level to make sure that we achieve those seats, achieve that activism, and get our unique voice heard.
Right, thank you very much, all candidates. Now, I shall take questions again from the, I think... Sorry? Oh, sorry. I knew there was something. Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, sorry, there are two other candidates who sent in statements. That's Catherine, is it Boettge? And Daniella Radice. I'm now going to ask Wendy to read out the statements that they've sent in.
Thank you. So the first statement is from Boettge. Kat has written, I am really sorry that I cannot be here today. My family lives in Italy, and this family visit was booked a long time ago before considering standing. We haven't seen each other for over 1 year, and if I didn't go now, it would be another year. I simply could not do that to my daughter or her family. I hope you can all understand this. But here's my statement. We are living in turbulent times. Our country is in crisis. Inequality is growing. Austerity has been crippling this country. The country is suffering consequently from division and blame. I understand that people are angry. I understand that people want change. I believe that we, the Green Party, have the solutions to address this inequality and social and economic injustice. We also understand that social justice is inherently linked to environmental justice. Climate change has started. Climate change will dominate our future problems. But we must not only show the dangers of climate change, but also solutions like the Green New Deal. That's why I am a Green. I have joined the Green Party when I thought I couldn't face my daughter in years to come without being able to say I have tried and hopefully I have made a difference. So why me? First of all, I think we need more people from outside of London or the South. I live in Nottingham in the East Midlands. As the regional chair, I have been helping to get our regional party up to scratch. I have been the lead candidate for the Euro elections 2014 and was re-elected again as the lead Euro candidate earlier this year. I stood in various local elections and for Nottingham North in last year's general election. I'm a town councillor and vice chair of the Neighbourhood Planning Committee. In my various roles, I have gained a very good regional public presence with regular regional TV, radio and public events appearances. And finally, I was the national spokesperson for social care. More about me is I am also a single parent, a psychotherapist and a European migrant. Finally, it is now that our country needs reparations, people need change, the notion of cooperation, working together, democratic reform, and alliances, and we need to tackle the real problems. We, the Greens, can do that.
And Daniella Radice.
So this is the statement of Daniella Radice. Hello, I am sorry not to be with you at the Hustings, and I know that there is nothing more important than actually meeting someone so as to make a decision as to whether you think they would be a suitable deputy leader. Unfortunately, I booked a family holiday for the end of July, long before I thought of standing for deputy leader, and so I am missing most of the Hustings. I will just tell you a little bit about myself, why I am standing, and why I think it's important for us as a party. I am standing because I am an experienced Green Party activist and politician. I have been a member of the party since 2001, when I first moved to Bristol. I've helped our local party grow from 0 to a high point of having 14 councillors and coming second in the recent general election in Bristol West. I ran for mayor in 2012, was elected as a councillor in 2013, and was a member of Bristol's cross-party cabinet under Bristol's independent mayor for 18 months. I have represented Bristol as Green at a local, national and international level, travelling to COP21 in Paris to speak on panels talking about the great energy projects going on in Bristol. When Natalie stood for the leadership, I was impressed by her commitment to improving our organisation and strengthening local parties, the length and breadth of England and Wales. As deputy leader, I am committed to building on what she has done to ensure we maintain strong, enthusiastic and resilient local parties. I am very focused on ensuring that we do all we can to win elections. Where we have even 1 or 2 elected Greens on a council, we can make a huge difference, challenging the status quo and demonstrating how politics can be done differently. As a party, we must show how we are relevant to people's lives. To my mind, one of the biggest issues facing us is the country's housing crisis. This has been caused by years of failed policies from both Labour and the Conservatives. If elected, I would be keen to focus on housing. New housing must be low carbon, rents must be truly affordable, and housing must be designed so it creates health and healthy communities. Please email me or connect with me on Facebook if you have questions you'd like to ask. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Right, I'll take the person with the sort of bluish, that one there, yes, and then I'll come over there next.
I agree that we need to take a note from Bernie Sanders because he's led not only just a populist movement but a social media movement as well. I think if he'd ran 8 years ago, he wouldn't have achieved anywhere near the success that he's achieved this year. So instead of sitting around and waiting for the BBC and RTV to cover us, how will you organise and implement a green social media campaign?
Right. Take the person with the green, light green shirt there, yeah. And then I'll take the, yes, you there.
Alwyn Cartmel, Sefton Green Party. I'm not holier than thou, and I don't preach, but I'm embarrassed and made to feel awkward at every conference when I ask for something vegan to eat. Which of the party would ensure that I get to eat without feeling an oddball at the next conference?
Right. Yeah, and the person with the glasses there, yeah.
Hi, Astrid Johnson from the Manchester Green Party. I want to follow on from Margaret from Trafford, especially asking how you will support local parties, especially the big boroughs like Liverpool, Manchester, Sheffield. I feel in the north we need much more support from the National Party. There are support agreements now available, which is great, but also financially, and that would be very important.
Right. Okay. We'll take those three. I'll start with Amelia.
So in relation to the Bernie Sanders campaign, I hope you like my logo. I think it looks a lot better in red and green. And I think social media has so much power. When in the Welsh Assembly elections, we tried face banking and actually tried to use a lot of these, a lot of the ideas that Bernie used in his campaign. And it didn't take off in quite the same way in Wales because Cardiff isn't quite as big a city as some of the places where Bernie was using them. We then took those ideas and talked to people who worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign with Another Europe is Possible and started to build a lot of the, not just the social media aspects, but the way that we commit to tasks to help build a movement. I feel that that would have taken off had we not had just such a short time to build the movement. We just had a few months to really try and get that going. And had we had a few more months, I think that would have made a difference. At conference, it would be conferences committee who's the best people to talk to regarding that. But I do understand that we have been putting vegan options. There were meant to be cafes that were entirely vegan at the last 2 conferences, so I apologise if that didn't happen. But in terms of veganism, I do want to support the previous question, and I myself try and have a meat and dairy-free diet for 1 week of the month at the moment, with the outlook of being vegan in the future. And in terms of supporting local parties, we can do this in so many different ways. Liverpool, Manchester, Sheffield, all places that I visited to make sure that we come and galvanise bringing new members into the party, bringing new volunteers, new activists into the party. I've gone out to local parties to support fundraising events because, as you know, as the Greens, we don't have finances from big business, from multi-millionaires, or even from trade unions to the same level that other parties do, which means that it's from the grassroots we have to build those finances to make sure that we're able to invest into campaigns. So by building our membership and supporting all of the events that I can support, I hope that we will be able to bring more finances. But beyond that, consulting with parties in terms of their needs financially to make sure they're put into our priorities within GPEX and with the national budgeting.
We get 2 minutes for this, do we? Yeah. Same as our opening speech. Say a lot in 2 minutes. Brilliant. I better get cracking then. Well, look, a week is a long time in politics. A minute is a long time in blogosphere. It is clearly a very critical aspect of political campaigning now, and I think we're quite good at it. If you actually look at our social media operation, the general election, if you look at question time, I'm one of those tweeting away. Well, unfortunately, it might be, this is our real position on the EU referendum when Jenny Jones is on question time. But the thing is that we do have a lot of people who are active on social media, and I think it's really good. We're one of the better parties at it. In terms of your experience at the conference, I mean, I'm surprised because I would have thought people would be bending over backwards to accommodate the request. If anything, I think there's a little bit of insecurity about why aren't I holier than thou and doing all those things. And I think there's a wider issue here because I don't think we want to be seen as the party of cannot do, the party of can't do this, can't do that. That puts people off, and rightly so. We've got to be a party which puts policies at the heart of it and implementation at the heart of it, so that it makes it easier for people to do the things they want to do and make those choices they want to do. So I think behind your question is an interesting point about proselytising and what place it has. I think, of course, there is a role for us to implore people to do this, that and the other, but we've got to go make sure that we've got the policy and the implementation behind it to back it up so that people don't feel guilty about making the right choices. In terms of supporting local parties, I mean, I was here in Manchester, the People's Assembly Against Austerity, and there's a cross-party political approach to campaigning against austerity. That's actually what's the heart of a progressive alliance at the end of the day. It's not rocket science, it's nothing new. We are, and always have been, about looking beyond narrow party political confines. And that's one way in which we can engage and try and get people on board to what we're saying in a better way than others. Look, I mean, when Corbyn gets very unpopular within his own party for talking about no to Trident renewal or pulling out of NATO, that's something which we feel in our blood because it's something that we've actually assented to in a unified way across the party, and we don't have to worry about those same problems of credibility within the party. And finally, I was here for the Middleton by-election. And again, although it might not be the case that we have much chance of winning, I think it's vitally important that the deputy leader gets out and about supporting those campaigns and giving moral support, because that's the ultimate resource. It's people power and moral support, grassroots.
It's certainly important that we've run an effective social media campaign to promote green politics, green values and our green vision. And it can be summed up by the word opium. O is for organisation. We've got to be organised from the very beginning so we can make sure it's a smooth operation that reaches out to everyone. P, preparation. We've got to be prepared and make sure we've got it set up to launch at just the right time and make sure it can reach out to those it needs to reach out to. I is for image. We've got to present the green image as a nice, fresh one that cements us as the party of tomorrow, today, for our generation and for future generations that can appeal online and offline. U is for user-friendliness. It's got to be accessible to everyone, especially disabled people who may have visual or hearing elements. So we've got to accommodate everyone who might want to look at it. And M is for multimedia. We've got to link it across all sorts of social networking sites, from Facebook to Twitter to LinkedIn to Tumblr and all sorts of online forums. And that is how we'll run a successful green social media campaign in Britain. As for conference, I believe we can make built in an in-house caterer and not have to rely on outside catering for conferences. I mean, a lot of us Greens are used to making things at home because homemade things are natural things, and I believe we can bring those to conference and make sure we can get affordable catering that can cater to vegans, vegetarians.
15 seconds.
And as for engaging local parties, that's very important. We've also got to build local parties where they don't currently exist so that we can stand candidates everywhere, locally, regionally and nationally, and be seen as a credible, serious alternative party by everyone. Thank you.
I'm a strong user of social media. I use Twitter, I use Facebook, I use blogs. During the general election, I was in the spin team during the leadership debates, and I actually trended on Twitter during the leadership debates, which was good fun, and gave me gave me quite a boost, actually, personally. So I think those things are important. And if you look at things like our video footage and things like that, we complain about the fact that we don't get as much coverage as we do on the television. But when you've seen some of the videos, some of the excellent videos that have been produced by the Green Party, social media has been the way that's been seen by hundreds of thousands of people. And so we should embrace social media and use it to best effect. Veganism and conferences. One of the things I've been doing in my own local area is working with a new vegan cafe and getting it promoted and helping it about. And so I think one of the things we ought to be looking at our own conferences is searching out those vegan businesses themselves who are used to producing good vegan food a lot of the time. And so we're not having people who are not used to doing it sort of going, right, what are we going to do? How are we going to produce vegan food? So I think that's the way that we're going to be best helping that area. As regards the north, I'm from the north. I'm here. I don't have to make huge special trips, or it won't be necessarily a day out of my life to actually come to places in the north. I can get to most places in the north in an hour or under, probably about half an hour. And that's been useful, as I mentioned earlier, about getting to things like Media City. I'm also a regional campaigns coordinator, and I do that because I know about how to win elections. And one of the things I'm quite keen to do is work with local parties and help them get their first councillors.
15 seconds.
Do that. In terms of fundraising, I'd like to help with that. I'm talking to Suma Whole Foods at the moment about ways in which they can help sponsor Green Party leaflets. Thank you.
In terms of social media, we've done very well as a party. I think we can definitely expand on that. And we need to make social media tools available across the party and really focus our work so that everyone, whatever their background, is able to use. Local members and local parties and neighbourhood teams can use social media tools, and we need to upgrade our membership website so people can have access to those. And in terms of harnessing social media, put it in the hands of everybody so everyone can use those campaigns and really focus on various focus campaigns, for example, on housing, which can appeal to much wider sections of our society, so we're reaching out beyond our traditional demographics. In terms of, I'm a vegan myself and have been for 25 years, so I understand your concerns about conference, and I've felt that myself. I also think some of our food we don't necessarily have a wide as range as affordable food as we might have at conference, but at the same time, I know our conference committee and organisers have worked very hard. Maybe that's one area we can look to improve in the future. Veganism as a whole and vegetarianism, and it's come up in the leaders' part of the Hustings earlier. I think as a party, we need to seek, rather than converting a few people to veganism or vegetarianism, rather looking to make it easier for people to understand and make a transition to eating less meat, because converting one person is far less effective than converting 100 people to reducing their meat intake in terms of environmental and animal welfare outcomes. And finally, in terms of local party support and funding, I back what Amelia said earlier and what other candidates have said about the limited funding within our party. One of the areas I'd like to support local parties in establishing neighbourhood teams, so every member of the party can feel more engaged, can reach out to new communities that we have not currently reaching out to, and get more members on board, increasing our funding flow. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. I'll take the person at the front in the dark jacket first.
I was born 50-odd years ago in Stoke-on-Trent, which used to have a potteries industry, mining industry, steel industry. My dad worked for the Michelin. None of that anymore. That tribe, if you like, that I was brought up in, our school had one black family, and that was it. I'm sure there was lots of gay people, but I did not know who they were. They weren't out. Do you know what I mean? Whenever you see stuff about where I come from, and I feel a sense of belonging about that, it's this kind of Brexit take back control thing. The BNP get in.
Can you frame it as a question?
Against. What have you got to say to that tribe?
Right, thank you. The person with the longish hair there with the dark blue top.
Thank you very much. Jessica Northey, St Helens Green Party. There's a battle going on at the moment in the northwest with the fracking companies, and there are some very brave campaigners somewhere in this room. I think we as local parties need to step up what we're doing to support this campaign. As deputy leader, with the tools you have, with the media access you'll have, what can you do either locally here in Lancashire, for example, or nationally, or with European partners to be more involved in this campaign?
Hi, Dave Collins, Sefton Green Party. I'm also an active member of GAP, the Greens for Animal Protection, who exists to promote Green Party policies within and outside the party. As Deputy Leader, what will you do to help us promote our excellent Green Party animal policies?
And I'll take one more, which the person because that was that's quite similar to the vegan question, I think.
Somebody else who's from Stoke-on-Trent and now lives in Preston, I can understand what you mean. There's a vacuum in politics in the Northwest and in the Midlands. You look at Stoke-on-Trent, 70% voted for Brexit. They lived in fear for 40 years. Stoke-on-Trent used to have 57 councillors that were Labour and 3 Conservatives. Now it's down to something like 50-50 because people have left.
Again, can you frame it as a question?
The simple fact is, UKIP will rebrand. They're going to be refunded to create a new party. That's a good chance. What are we going to do to help these rural areas to fight for green principles, green rights? Because Sheffield, Manchester and Liverpool, that's fine. But it's other areas, that's the people that have been damaged for 40 years.
Right, okay, thank you. Right, I'll take Andrew first.
The first time I ever stood as a Green candidate in 1988 was in Stoke-on-Trent. Stoke-on-Trent Central, I got 13% of the vote, so I was dead chuffed. I mean, I think the important thing about those sort of areas is actually trying to find, I think, is use that sense of community and getting people to work together. A lot of those industries have gone, but there are new industries that we can bring on. If we look at the things we have to do to create the sort of world we want, I think we also might need more batteries in the microphone.
Cheers. Try.
I'm energy spokespeople. They know all about batteries and energy. You know? So I think one of the things we really do need to do is show where the future is going. Where are we going to be building the wind turbines? Where are we going to be building the solar panels? It's crazy that we were getting solar panels when we did have a large solar industry. A lot of those coming from China. Those should have been produced and manufactured here. I would like Stoke-on-Trent to be the place where solar panels are built. Stoke-on-Trent should be the solar capital of the UK, and as well of Huddersfield, if I'm talking there. So there are a lot of things we've got to do. There's a lot of work out there to create the sort of world we want. In the last general election, we were going to refurbish 9 million homes. We could have people in every community in the UK getting together to do that. And in terms of making that relevant to what we're talking about here, I think we need to relaunch the Green Party and make it relevant to people and show how the things that we're doing and the things that we're producing are relevant to their everyday lives. And I think that's desperately needed. We need to put ourselves forward and show how we're going to do that. As regard fracking, somebody asked about fracking. I was at Northallerton as energy spokesperson, speaking to the television, and was quoted everywhere from the Belfast Telegraph downwards there. So I represented the party there, and I think it's important that we're involved in every fracking demonstration. And Tina Rothery is a hero, and I think we ought to be backing her and doing everything we can to do that.
Right.
So people who put themselves in the line need our backing 100%. Animal protection.
You're running out of time.
Okay. Certainly, as regards animal protection, yes, we do have excellent policies. I particularly want to do things about animal welfare and make sure that those are put forward there. Anyway, I'll stop now.
In terms of the Northwest, we definitely need to relaunch the Green Party in a sense and reach out to new people across the country, and particularly in this area. We also need to be braver than other parties and do what people have done in many other countries, which is look at the UK, look at our resources, including our manufacturing industries, but also our service industries and our government departments, which employ a huge percentage of the population, and look at redistributing them across the country and encouraging businesses elsewhere. And there's a real lack of services, transportation, and finance for industries and incentives for people to move into other parts of the country, which creates huge problems in the southeast of itself. And it also means, for example, in housing as well, that you've got a huge disparity in prices. And also we've got, for example, more homes than households in the country. And yet we've got a massive housing crisis, which just doesn't add up. And that's because of a lack of courage on the part of the government. And we need to have that courage ourselves. And we need to reach out to people through those policies and saying how we connect again to our policies, connect to their everyday lives, both in terms of industry, in terms of finance, resources, public services, wages, for example, and housing and health. When it comes to fracking, we need to reframe the argument on fracking and make it much, much clearer to people who aren't necessarily aware, the majority of people I speak to aren't aware of how it comes into the bigger issue of climate change and a bigger issue of energy usage, including things that affect their everyday lives. And that's what we need to do as a party, reframe the argument, not just be responding to it. And in terms of animal welfare, I think we're the only party who really has decent policies, and we would need to work harder as a leadership team to get those across to people.
Amelia.
Just want to be clear about one thing. I am against UKIP and all of these groups. I am not against their voters. Because many people who vote for UKIP and for all of these other different parties, they have taken the very worst of austerity. They are struggling to get through day to day. And there's been people saying there is a solution to this. I'm going to give you a solution. The problem is migration and Europe. And we've just seen a referendum where those two sides of the same coin have been so stark that many people almost voted in the referendum as if they were voting on an issue to do with migration. And when I'm on the doorstep and talk to people who are voting UKIP, it's clear that when you say, do you have a problem with migration? People will say yes, because I'm worried about housing. I'm worried about my low wages. I'm worried about jobs. I'm worried about the NHS. And it gives you an opportunity to tackle the issues under the umbrella that they're using basically the policies of UKIP to hide behind. And we need to be tackling that clearly. And I think it was on this panel where somebody said, obviously the UKIP vote would go up under proportional representation. It's our duty to take on that rhetoric, challenge it, and make that difference. We do not hide behind an undemocratic system to do that. In terms of animal policies, I've launched the Animal Manifesto in Wales and have supported League Against Cruel Sports in the snare ban, which I think is a really important step, especially in Wales at the time. And in terms of non-violent direct action, was really proud to be walking alongside people in Merthyr Tydfil with Reclaim the Power as part of a mass trespass to highlight that there's no place for open cast mining in the UK. And by doing that, we made it into The Guardian.
15 seconds.
By doing that, we do make a difference and we get that voice heard and people listen. So I'm keen to make sure that we are part of that activism and they're at the grassroots and being part of non-violent direct action that makes that difference and gets our voices heard.
This is a great question, particularly for those southern metropolitan middle-class academic types. But look, really, the Green Party is nothing if not holistic, and our analysis has to be complete. So there are some assumptions here. Everybody wants or needs work, or work is a good thing. You don't have to be obsessed with the work ethic to understand that people want things to do. Now, in the long term, we might be saying that we need to make sure that this safety net is sufficient for everybody's basic needs to be met. That's where the citizen's income comes in. But once that enables people to have a better work-life balance, then yes, we can look at what kind of jobs are there and are available. And we shouldn't be advocating a kind of the Gordon Brown era of car scrappage scheme. Do you remember that one? This was totally contradictory on its own terms. Because if you were trying to kickstart the motor industry by having people trade in an old car which was still functioning for a new one, overall the cost of the planet is greater. The answer is this. So many things for people to be doing. Whether it's renewable industry, we're practically bottom of the league table in terms of the EU. We need to be putting work and investment into that, for example, renewable energy. We can be turning the factories which are currently being used for arms manufacture. How unconscionable are those? The same kind of kit can be used and reskilling of people to renewable industry. We talk about green jobs. We talk about that revolution in green jobs. And guess what? Politics is about priorities. Instead of spending 32 billion on high-speed rail, instead of spending 100 billion on Trident renewal, we should be putting up our money where our mouth is into those jobs.
We, the Green Party, certainly need to revitalise new industries in areas which have lost them. And not just industrial areas like Stoke-on-Trent, Manchester, Merseyside, Sheffield, et al., but also old mining areas like the Forest of Dean, the Durham coalfields and the Yorkshire coalfields. I mean, all of these contain high potential which we can use for a Green New Deal based on renewable energy innovation and green job innovation in general. It's not just solar power where we can be a leader. We can also be a leader in offshore wind power and hydroelectric power. After all, we are an island with lots of rivers, so there's lots of potential there. This is part of my Green Politics for Everyone message. I also believe we need a strong safety net just in case not everyone can get at work. The citizens' income, which should be high enough to be a strong safety net and will actually give positive incentives for people to work. The current regime gives disincentives to work and just drives people insane, sometimes literally, unfortunately. I've been through it myself. I generally work part-time. I've struggled to get full-time work. I believe that people should be able to get full-time work. Can be protected just in case things go wrong.
Yeah,
as for animal, all right, I believe we need strong animal or policies that are ethical and environmental, and also practicable. And yes, we definitely need to be behind all anti-fracking campaigns, and we need to, at these campaigns, provide cleaner, greener solutions. Let's say no fracking way to dirty oil, and yes to renewable clean energy.
Okay, we have the room until 5. I'm not sure how quickly we're going to get thrown out. Sorry? I'm going to try one more round, but everyone's going to have to be very quick, both in questions and answers. I'll take the person there with the fair hair, and you with the dark top, and then with the striped top there.
I'd like to see the roles of deputy leader made more prominent. I'd like to see more faces from the Green Party travelling around the country at activism sites, obviously. How could you improve the role if you take the role of deputy leader? What more could you do to expand that role and your visibility in it?
I'd like to know who you think the members of the Green Party are. I know that we had some research a couple of years ago, and a lot of people were surprised by the information that came out. I want to know who you think the members of the Green Party are, and how we might get other new members who do have a better representation of the country as a whole in the future.
Whilst the Progressive Alliance is being worked out, or if it doesn't work at all, how do you suggest that the Greens avoid being overshadowed by a left-wing Labour Party, and how do we remain a force in politics?
Start with Störm.
Okay.
I'll give you 1 minute.
Okay. Great. Okay. Okay. I'd improve the role of deputy leader by lobbying for the deputy leaders to be present in GPEX meetings, for example, and in engaging with the local parties to take a much bigger role in trying to liaise with people within GPRC, GPEX, and party spokespeople, and involve more people. I think the members of the party, as far as I know, are within a quite narrow age band predominantly, and in terms of class and social backgrounds, and I think there's a slightly gender bias towards women within the party membership as well. And I think I've said earlier how I would seek as deputy leader to try and enhance that, and me personally with my background as well, and I think I've got the persona and ability to reach out to people from other backgrounds, which comes into dealing with the media and getting a role for the deputy leader where we actually get more media airtime, specifically addressing issues which are of concern to people, for example, potential UKIP voters.
That's time.
How could I expand the role and make it more relevant? Well, as an elected councillor, I've got that experience there of talking with authority and authenticity about things that are actually happening. And being an elected politician is something that I will be able to add to that. Who are our members? One thing I do know about our members is they're not Muslim. Is there anybody here who is Muslim? If you don't want to identify yourself, it's okay. But we tend not to attract people from that community. I represent a lot of people in the Muslim community from where I come from, and I invited Muslim engagement and development to our last conference to talk about Islamophobia. I invited them to come to our conference. They now invite me to come to theirs. Labour, well, there's a lot of things we could see whether Corbyn will or will not survive, but whether he does or he doesn't, they're still linked to unsustainable growth economics. And what we're talking about is a sustainable future. They just simply haven't got that or understand that. And so we can speak very distinctively about the sort of economics that Dave Malone was talking about. Labour don't get that.
I would expand the deputy leader role in the Green Party by making better use of media opportunities, such as on Question Time and BBC Any Questions and Newsnight, because we need a much more diverse array of spokespeople out there talking to the British public who we need to reach out to. I believe that the people in Green Party actually come from all walks of life. I mean, there are some dominant sectors like young students, academics, old-fashioned bohemians. But I will be a deputy leader that speaks to all of you, no matter where you come or what your background is. What matters is what we do, and what matters is how we get the green message out to reach out to everyone. I don't think we really need to be worried about Labour. We're not Labour in any fashion. We are distinct from Labour because we use grassroots democracy, and we're actually democratic and respectful. And Labour's is not.
Wind up.
And Labour is not. So therefore, we can strike out on our own and make sure that we can be the party of tomorrow here today.
Firstly, thanks for that question, Tina, and congratulations on everything you're doing, and I've already committed to come to your next court case. In terms of improving the role, I don't think I've had to turn down any invitation to the local party, but what would be very good is to find out an audit that it isn't just those who are like raising their hands and asking for it, and making sure that if there are people who have been missed out, that we make sure we go and reach them, and maybe even rotate where GPEX happens. It's currently all the time in London. Why not just move that around a bit like GPRC? In terms of who are the members of the party, great question. I mean, I think the Green Party is in a continual identity crisis. And it's partly because people with genuine concerns, whether it's about the fact that trans people aren't properly specified when they're going to nominations, they don't know which box to tick. That's not right. That's not good. Whether it's because we don't have any ethnic minorities in the party, which is deplorable, and I haven't had enough time to speak about this today. But the thing is that first and foremost, as David Malone said, we're a party of ideas. And I actually want to go into a room and say, this person's a Green Party member. That's good enough for me. We're all inclusive. And it's the same when I go out on the street and talk to people. You are worthy of my attention because you're a human being. And that's what I'm appealing to. It's that all-inclusivity that even, those people you might think are morally beyond the pale are not morally unreachable. Well, maybe IDS. Progressive Alliance. The thing is, Labour, it's been said, finally about the Labour Party. All those backstabbers in the party about Jeremy Corbyn, saying he's a good and decent man, but he's not a leader, and that's the problem. How ludicrous can you get? To the contrary, he's a leader of the Labour Party, he's a good and decent man, and what do we say about our party? We are good and decent people, we're all leaders, and that's our asset.
Right. Amelia.
So the reason that deputy leader hasn't been such a prominent role was it was a voluntary position until very recently. So all of the work that I've been doing for the last 18 months, I was working 70 to 80-hour weeks to make sure that I could deliver the position of deputy leader while keeping a roof over my head. Now it's paid, I feel that I'm able to open up those opportunities by working full-time and dedicating everything I have, dedicating all my passion and commitment that you've seen while I haven't been able to put in those same hours, and be able to make that difference in terms of getting a voice out there. Because in terms of question time and all of those things, they ask you to come. The only way they will ask you is if they know who you are and if you're going out. And the most media work I actually get is in the regions, because I've been there and I've been working there, and we're able to provide that voice. And in terms of, I think the Progressive Alliance question is very interesting, because I think I'm one of the only people that's worked on a progressive alliance, which we put together in Wales, and it fell through at the last moment. And I think this is why it's an interesting question, because first of all, it's just a conversation. It starts with a meeting, and I can see the opportunity that we have, but we still will remain a political force whatever happens. We need to be equal players at that table, which is what we did in Wales, and we created it in Wales by making sure that, but by keeping ourselves a progressive force, we have the track record. We can prove what we do. And at the moment, the fact that we are those people that are standing up for the closures of council houses, we're standing up against fracking. It's not Labour that's in those communities doing that. It's you. It's the Green Party members protecting people's basic rights. And that's how we'll keep our force going. And that's how we'll prove how we're different.
Right, okay. Right, I'm going to wind up at this point, because I do expect somebody will appear around that door at any minute. I'd like to thank all the candidates for both leader and deputy leader for taking time out to come and face questions from you today. And I'd like to thank all you for coming. It's great to see the room absolutely filled to the brim. We could even have filled probably a slightly bigger room. In terms of what happens next, you will soon be able to vote for these assorted people. All members can vote. There's no long waiting period. There's no extra charge for voting, so please take advantage of that fact. I think it's the 25th. You can still have party meetings. 25th of July, I think the ballot opens. So watch out for that. So once again, thank you, and have a safe journey home. And particularly if any of the candidates who've kind of come to our fair city want to sort of hang around afterwards and see some of the sights, then I think some of us are around to show you. So.
Thank you, Brian, for chatting.
Yeah.
The best pub in this area is the Waterhouse, and it has no music, so you can hear yourself.
It is Weatherspoons, though, so if that's an ethical issue.
Take our seats.